Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for being here at the 2017 GIA conference in Detroit. Woo! My name is Janet Brown. Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to introduce myself as a 66-year-old white woman, the child of Norwegian and Irish immigrants. And I was raised in a town of 2,000 in South Dakota. So that's about all you need to know about me. Except that it's been my honor for the last 9 years to be the president and CEO of Grantmakers in the Arts. Thank you. We are truly delighted to be in Detroit, which has an amazing history and an unlimited future. We acknowledge and honor the land that we are on, originally inhabited by the Anishinaabe people before Europeans settled here in the 17th century. And I'd like us just for a minute, maybe less than a minute, to think about our own ancestors, our own people, and those who have brought us to this place at this time. Thank you. This is my time to thank everybody. So, thank you to the incredible team of local funders who have helped us to plan this conference. Without them, we wouldn't be here, and you wouldn't see the incredible artists that you're going to see or the wonderful venues that we're going to be at. I'll ask them to stand and remain standing until I've read all their names, and then you can give them a big round of applause. And I have to start with the incredible and amazing, and then I won't use any more adjectives, sorry. Regina Smith, who has chaired this conference from the Kresge Foundation. I asked them not to applaud. And the remainder of the committee who have been wonderful also are John Bracey with the Michigan Council on the Arts, Christina DeRose from the Kresge Arts Detroit, Kimberly Diggins, the City of Detroit. Please stand, folks, yeah. Sigil Hemme from the Fred A. and Barbara M. Erb Family Foundation, Camila Henderson, the Community Foundation of Southeast Michigan, George Jacobson from the William Davidson Foundation, Sharnita Johnson from the Geraldine R. Dodge Foundation, Katie Locker, John S. and James L. Knight Foundation, the Detroit Program, and Alicia Socia from the Kresge Foundation Detroit Program. Thank you all for all of your really wonderful help. And I also want to thank the GIA staff who, of course, have done one more time and a really exceptional job. And especially at this point today, I want to thank Jim McDonald. Who manages every detail of this conference. And if you think that's an exaggeration, it's not. So thank you, Jim. I also want to thank our donors who have helped to make this conference a success. They are listed on the inside of your program, but I must call out our leadership sponsors and those who were extremely generous in helping to support this conference in Detroit. Our anchor gift was provided by the Kresge Foundation, which made our selection of Detroit possible. The Ford Foundation and the John S. and James L. Knight Foundations who provided their leadership support. So thank you to those three foundations especially. And now I'd like to ask the Grantmakers in the Arts Board of Directors to stand. These are incredible people. You all know that it's not easy to be on the GI board. They give of their time, they give of their commitment, and their resources. And next to that, and so look around, they have little badges that say board on them. You can ask them any question you like. They've sworn to tell the truth. So help me God. So they're fantastic. So stay standing, but now I'd like to ask anyone who's ever served on the GIA board to stand. And thank you all for your service. We all stand on the shoulders, right? We will begin every day of this conference with artists who are at the center of our work. Before George Jacobson introduces you to today's Idea Lab artists, I want to invite a very special person to the stage. As most of you know, I'll be stepping down December 31st. And I'm absolutely thrilled to be working with the new president and CEO. And to introduce him is the amazing woman coming up the stairs who chairs this organization and led the search in an amazing way that was full of integrity and honesty and transparency. So Miss Angelique Power, chairperson of the GIA board and president of the Field Foundation of Chicago, Illinois, Chicago, Illinois.
Good morning. 1 year ago, on the final day of the GIA conference in St. Paul, Minnesota, I was feeling pretty good. Autumn had left the Twin Cities kissed in bright, glowing colors. The conference had over-delivered, which has become the norm. I'd seen many people that I know, that I have come to love, to genuinely love, and I had met many new people that I wanted to spend more time with. I felt ready to take on my new role as chair of the GIA board. Janet and Bob Booker, the amazing former chair of the GIA board, had invited me to an early breakfast in Janet's room on that final morning. Assuming this was some sort of a hazing ritual, I went with a smile on my admittedly slightly hungover face, thinking of coffee and donuts and conversation. When I sat down in that abnormally quiet room that morning, and Janet turned to me and said, "There's something I need to tell you," my heart froze. Please, I thought, please don't let this woman tell me she's going to leave her job. This red-haired, fiercely smart, and equally compassionate woman, this person I've observed for years and longed to spend more time with, this champion of funding organizations well, this white lady who is right on the damn mark about racial equity, this friend I trust and have had very real conversations about the world and work with, this partner in crime, that even though I was just beginning to run my own foundation in Chicago, I had said yes to chairing the GIA board because I would do anything with Janet. When she told me she was leaving, I responded in the smartest, most responsible way I could. I burst into tears. I really did. And for a moment, we held hands and we cried together. And then she said, "I want to go home. It's time to go back to South Dakota and return to my life there. I'm not leaving the arts. I'm not leaving the sector. I'm not leaving you. You can always contact me. I will continue to do this work, but it's time for me to go home." And by the end of that sobering conversation, literally. I knew that I had actually been given a gift, that in chairing the board and the search committee, which we soon named the Alchemy Alliance, I would be able to try to give Janet a send-off she deserved, while also using all that I've learned from the incredible GIA staff, from my brilliant and thoughtful fellow board members who you just saw standing, and from the members that I knew and the ones that I've just met, to create a committee that would look for the person who could build on this tremendous work that Janet has done. I want to ask Roberto Bedoya, Vicki Benson, Angie Kim, Maureen Knighton, Glenn Northington, and Regina Smith to please stand. This is the remarkable search committee with whom I was honored to collaborate on finding the next president. Thank you. So together with this crew who put in many extra hours and traveled many extra miles, where am I? Oh, here I am. We started to hear from amazing candidates, and I mean amazing, amazing candidates. We were blown away by the caliber of hats that were thrown into the ring. But one hat, one beret, perhaps, emerged at the top of our list. It seems as if Eddie Torres's whole career has been training ground for this role. From the Bronx Art Council, Ford and Rockefeller Foundations, and his latest stint as Deputy Commissioner of Cultural Affairs for New York City. Eddie embodies the variety and nuance of the people in this room, of our GIA membership. Eddie has an innate chemistry of genuine humility mixed with unapologetically bold vision, signaling a depth of understanding for what's needed right now in today's world, and the patient ease to bring the rest of us along in concert. Raise your hand if you knew Eddie Torres before today. Raise your hand if you don't know Eddie Torres. All right, you will. I'll check in at the end of this conference. We'll see. The task for the search committee was, in essence, the quest to answer a series of questions. Questions like, how do we protect what we have here at GIA? How do we continue to create an open community that pushes ideas and welcomes divergent thinking, that emphasizes that every single geography is important, that sees racial equity as a tool that produces greater impact and greater fulfillment for everyone? How do we protect the space that allows each of you to be your damn self, to disagree and agree, to toast in the night, to find electric inspiration in the morning at every Idea Lab? This is not an easy task. You people are tough people. But I'm happy to say, and to echo what many of you have said to me and to other board members since the announcement was made, we found our person. And while I'm extremely proud that this will be the first Latinx leader of GIA, right? Eddie is more than a representational win. He is the 1-2 punch of charm and intellect. He offers a depth of thinking on the arts that only comes from someone who's worked inside a local arts council, and for some of the largest philanthropic entities to boot. He's a person who has a master's in management because he feels it's critical to treat his staff thoughtfully. He's a person who puts his family in the center of his purpose, and in a few short years has turned funding in New York City arts on its head to stunning acclaim. Please join me in welcoming the next president and CEO, the sensitive genius, love of a man, that's Eddie Torres.
Thanks. I mean, you know, when you speak in public, your greatest concern is you will have to follow somebody who's a better public speaker than you are. And I get to not only do that, but follow 9 years of Janet Brown's exceptional leadership. Janet, I am so grateful to be able to take over Grantmakers in the Arts after 9 years of your leadership. This is such an exciting moment for me because when I applied for this job and when I began to pursue this opportunity, is this okay, by the way? Okay, good. You know, it really came down to this. Grantmakers in the Arts is the home of so many of my heroes. Whenever I've had to do something that felt really, really difficult, I looked to this community to inform how I was doing it, but also just to give me the emotional courage and the moral courage to do it, you know? Angelique mentioned I've worked for a small nonprofit that's raised money to make grants. I've worked for a couple of foundations. I've worked for the government. So I have a sense of, you know, what you're working with, you know? So often you're working with, you know, your boards of directors and their impatience for that which can be quantified, you know? And so often when you're collaborating outside of the arts, you're dealing with colleagues who are eager to instrumentalize the field that you so love, and that is so much bigger than that which can be instrumentalized. You know, for those of you who raise money to make grants, you're working with the frustrations of two different fields at the same time. You know, for those of you in the public sector, you know, you're dealing with budget negotiations and this constant sort of brinksmanship, and you're dealing with a public that wants more services and no taxes, you know? For so many of us, we're dealing with a field at the center of which is the concept of leverage, in which everybody wants to leverage somebody else, and nobody actually wants to get leveraged. For those of you who work in rural and other low-income communities, this is doubly, triply maddening, where there's nobody to leverage. You know, we're all doing this in this larger national context right now, where charitable deductions that make philanthropy possible are under threat. You know, this is particularly hard for those of you who are at community foundations. We're also dealing with this national context of this backlash against racial equality and this backlash against equality for women. You know, and at a time like this, I feel so particularly lucky to be at Grantmakers in the Arts because you don't quit. You know, at times like this, you take this moment to tell the story through your grantees and through your own work of the role that the arts play in making us fully human. You know, the role that the arts play in community development, in education, in health, etc., but in ultimately making us more fully human beings. You advocate for the role that artists can play in collaborations from the start, not as an afterthought or an add-on or the entertainment or the decoration, but from the start. You advocate for artists as workers who deserve to get paid. You know, at times like this, you stop and you reflect and you say, how can I be more thoughtful, more responsive, more equitable? And that's why I'm lucky to be working among my heroes. I know how lucky I am. I consider this a privilege, and I'm going to treat it like a privilege every day. Thank you. Ideal Labs?